The Conjuring franchise has haunted audiences with its terrifying portrayal of Annabelle. But what if I told you the real-life Annabelle is far more chilling than anything Hollywood could dream up? Yes, the doll exists, and her true story blurs the line between nightmare and reality. It may come as a surprise that the real Annabelle doll, at least on the surface, is not the nightmare's doll from hell as depicted in the films. Instead, she's a seemingly innocent Raggedy Ann doll, which only makes her story even more unsettling. According to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, Annabelle was a vessel for something dark, something far more sinister than a child's toy. The story begins in 1970, when a nursing student named Donna received the doll as a gift from her mother. Donna lived in an apartment with her roommate, Angie, also a nursing student. At first, the doll seemed harmless, a typical cuddly toy. But soon, strange occurrences began to unfold. It started small. Donna and Angie would return home to find the doll had shifted positions. At first, they dismissed it as imagination or forgetfulness. But as time passed, Annabelle's movements became more bizarre and harder to ignore. The doll would appear in different rooms, even though no one had touched her. Sometimes Donna would leave Annabelle on the couch, only to return and find her back in Donna's room, seated on her bed. But that wasn't the worst of it. One day, the roommates discovered parchment paper with messages scrawled on it in childlike handwriting. The notes read, "Help us," and "Help Lou." What was particularly eerie? Neither Donna nor Angie owned any parchment paper. But things were about to get even darker. Lou was a close friend of Donna and Angie, and he often visited their apartment. Unlike Donna, Lou had always felt uneasy about the doll, warning Donna to get rid of it from the start. One night, Lou had a terrifying encounter that changed everything. He reported waking up in the middle of the night, completely paralyzed with fear. As he looked around, he saw Annabelle slowly crawling up his body. Frozen in terror, he watched as the doll reached his chest and began strangling him. Although this horrifying event felt like a nightmare, Lou was convinced it had been real. In another incident, Lou and Angie heard rustling noises coming from Donna's room. Lou decided to investigate, but when he entered, the room appeared empty. Suddenly, Lou felt a sharp pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw what appeared to be claw-like scratches, deep and burning across his skin. This was the breaking point for Donna, Angie, and Lou. With the strange and dangerous activity escalating, Donna finally sought outside help. That's when the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren entered the picture. Known for their work in paranormal investigations like the Amityville Horror and the Enfield Poltergeist, the Warrens quickly identified that Annabelle wasn't haunted by a harmless spirit. According to Lorraine Warren, the doll wasn't inhabited by a child's ghost, but rather something much more terrifying, a demonic entity. The spirit was using the doll as a conduit, tricking Anna and Angie by pretending to be an innocent young girl. The Warrens believed that the entity's ultimate goal was possession, and it was only a matter of time before it attempted to take over one of the residents of the apartment, most likely Donna. Realizing the danger, the Warrens immediately contacted a priest to perform an exorcism on the apartment, hoping to rid it of the dark presence. But what would become of Annabelle? The Warrens took the doll with them, placing it in their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut, where it remains to this day. The doll is kept in a specially designed glass case, and a priest blesses the case regularly to prevent any further malevolent activity. Even now, visitors to the museum claim to feel a sense of dread when standing near the doll. Some have even reported misfortunes after mocking or disrespecting Annabelle during their visit. Thanks to the Warrens' accounts and the inclusion of Annabelle in the Conjuring universe, the legend of the doll has continued to grow. The movie version of Annabelle, while terrifying, doesn't fully capture the real horror of the Raggedy Ann doll's story. The true story of Annabelle remains one of the most well-known cases in paranormal history. The seemingly innocent doll has gone on to cement its place as one of the most feared objects in the world. So, was Annabelle truly a vessel for a demonic entity? While skeptics might doubt the Warrens' claims, the people involved in this case, Donna, Angie, Lou, and the Warrens themselves, were left convinced of the doll's dark power. Whether you believe it or not, one thing is certain. The real story of Annabelle is even more terrifying than what we've seen on the big screen. And with the doll still locked away in the Warrens' Occult Museum, one can only wonder what might happen if Annabelle ever escaped her case.
Dolls can be creepy, and as depicted in a plethora of horror films released throughout the decades, they can supposedly even play host to evil spirits. But what if I told you the origins of the ideas behind movies like Chucky may not have been fictional at all, but instead based in truth? You're watching Ghoulish Good Nights, and tonight we delve into the horrifying truth behind Chucky, the haunting of Robert the Doll. In the early years of the 20th century, a one-of-a-kind handcrafted doll found its way into the possession of a young boy named Eugene Robert Otto, gifted by a servant who worked for his family. This extraordinary doll, created by the renowned Steiff Company in Germany, stood about 40 inches tall and was stuffed with wood wool, also known as Excelsior. Affectionately known as Gene, the boy swiftly grew attached to the doll, naming it Robert, and forming a bond that would endure for a lifetime and beyond. Gene's abode, now dubbed the Artist's House, stands at 534 Eaton Street, erected between the years 1890 and 1898. Within these walls, Gene, an artist and author, was presented with the enigmatic Robert the Doll, and their remarkable tale began to take shape. Despite its unassuming cloth-made appearance, Robert soon found himself entangled in bizarre and somewhat alarming events. A sense of unease settled on a fateful night when a 10-year-old Gene awoke to discover Robert perched ominously at the foot of his bed, eyes locked onto him. In mere moments, Gene's mother was roused from her slumber by her son's desperate cries and cacophony of furniture toppling in his bedroom. Frantically, Gene implored his mother to rescue him. As she finally forced the locked door open, she found a petrified Gene huddled on his bed, the room in disarray, and Robert the Doll seated calmly nearby. "Robert did it," Gene could barely whisper, a phrase he would echo throughout his childhood when confronted with mysterious, unsettling, or destructive events. But was it truly Robert's doing? The inexplicable nature of how a seemingly harmless toy could wreak havoc in a child's room remained shrouded in mystery. Yet the enigmatic occurrences didn't end with that solitary episode. Gene's parents would often catch their son engaging in conversation with the doll, and to their astonishment, they would hear an entirely different voice respond. They claimed to witness the doll speak, its expression alter, and even catch glimpses of Robert darting up the stairs or staring out from the upper floor window. Robert's presence persisted through Gene's life, and after his parents' passing, he and his wife Anne returned to the family home, which is now a popular bed and breakfast. Gene felt Robert warranted a room of his own, placing him in an upstairs chamber featuring a window overlooking the street. Anne, however, was disquieted by Robert's presence, insisting that Gene banish the doll to the attic, away from potential harm. Gene acquiesced, but Robert was far from pleased. Visitors to the home soon reported hearing footsteps in the attic, the sound of pacing and sinister laughter. Neighborhood children recounted seeing Robert staring at them from the upstairs window, even mocking them as they journeyed to school. Alarmed by these claims, Gene hastened to investigate, certain that he had locked Robert away in the attic. To his utter disbelief, upon opening the bedroom door, there sat Robert, nestled in a rocking chair by the window. Gene's efforts to confine Robert to the attic were futile, as the doll would consistently reappear by the window in the upstairs room. Many speculate that the source of Robert's malevolence is rooted in the servant who initially gifted him to Gene, the same servant mistreated by Gene's parents. Some believe that she cursed the doll with voodoo and dark magic as retribution. This theory might explain the numerous chilling encounters people have experienced with Robert the Doll. But if true, wouldn't the haunting have ceased with the original owner's demise? As our story of Robert the Doll unfolds, it's fascinating to consider the broader cultural impact that tales of malevolent dolls have had on our popular cinema. The chilling events surrounding Robert may remind some of the popular horror movie franchise Child's Play, which began in 1988 and follows the terrifying exploits of a possessed doll named Chucky. Although the creators have not confirmed any connection, the similarities between Robert and Chucky's stories simply cannot be ignored. Both Robert and Chucky began their tales as seemingly normal children's toys, only to become enshrined in infamy as their stories unfolded. Each doll, with its own name and distinct personality, became the central figure in a series of unexplained and terrifying events. These similarities have led fans and scholars alike to speculate on whether the legend of Robert might have inspired the fictional Chucky, or if both are simply manifestations of a cultural fascination with the idea of the innocent turned evil. Child's Play took the concept to new heights, with Chucky becoming a symbol of horror. The franchise's success perhaps owes a debt to the groundwork laid by real-life stories like that of Robert the Doll. Stories that blur the lines between myth and reality, leaving us to wonder where one ends and the other begins. Whether coincidence or not, the story of Robert the Doll has undoubtedly contributed to the tapestry of horror lore from which Child's Play is woven, adding a layer of authenticity to the fearsome concept of a doll with a will of its own. Other films that delve into the eerie world of evil dolls include Annabelle, a spin-off from the Conjuring series, featuring a haunted doll with a sinister presence. Dead Silence is yet another example, where a ventriloquist dummy wreaks havoc and death upon those who encounter it. Both the story of Robert the Doll and films such as these share some striking similarities. A seemingly innocuous doll that becomes the center of bizarre and frightening events, unexplained occurrences that defy rational explanation, and a sense of dread that stems from the unexpected transformation of a childhood plaything into a sinister force. As the credits rolled on the first Child's Play movie back in 1988, audiences were left to ponder the origins of Chucky. The filmmakers Don Mancini and Tom Holland had unleashed a new terror onto the silver screen, but they remained tight-lipped about whether their creation was influenced by any true tales of terror. Yet, those who knew of Robert the Doll couldn't help but draw parallels. Robert's story was whispered about in the winds that swept through Key West long before Chucky ever brandished a knife. The doll's legend had seeped into the fabric of local lore, and perhaps into the collective unconscious of horror enthusiasts everywhere. Consider the evidence that fans and detectives of the dark, if you will, have pieced together. The possession. Both Robert and Chucky were said to house spirits within their stitched and stuffed bodies. Robert through some unknown enchantment, and Chucky through a ritual of voodoo spoken by a dying criminal. The companionship. Just as young Jean Otto found a friend in Robert, so did Andy Barclay in Chucky, each child unaware of the darkness that lurked beneath the cotton and felt. In the absence of a direct admission from the creators, the connection between Robert the Doll and Chucky remains a patchwork of conjecture and coincidence. Yet it's a patchwork stitched into the very heart of horror's quilt, a pattern of fear that repeats itself in stories told in hushed tones around campfires and on the silver screen. The truth may be as elusive as a shadow in a darkened room, but the story of Robert the Doll endures, a possible muse to the nightmares that dance in our heads long after we've outgrown our toys. If you enjoyed this story, then be sure to click all notifications on the notification bell so you can be up to date with the newest true tale. And most importantly, have a ghoulish good night.